The Tsar regime is dead. You're here to be interrogated about the outbreak of revolution and your potential involvement. What role do you believe the oppression of the lower classes by the Tsarist regime played in sparking the revolution of 1917?
Well, I do not believe this played a large role, because oppression was necessary to maintain social order.
Can you expand upon that?
For example, there were so many minorities that there was a lack of nationalism, leading to low personal conviction at the war front during World War I.
The serfs were freed from the Mirs and gained independence during Alexander II's regime. Do you think this caused them to demand other civil liberties?
Well, as the urban workers left for the front during the war, the peasants were needed to fill these jobs, which increased the desire for social independence.
I see. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll see you in court. Do you know why you're here?
Not exactly.
Well, you've been accused of causing the February-March Russian Revolution of 1917. These accusations include mismanagement of the government, disorganized bureaucracy, and weak leadership. The government was mismanaged and was thus incapable of presenting a unified front during World War I.
A lot of governments are disorganized. What specific accusation are you holding against me?
For one, the Duma did not approve of the finances to continue the war, thus leaving the Russian front stranded.
True, but this wasn't the fault of the Tsarist regime, for the Duma was just a representative body.
That is a point to consider. However, the bureaucracy was still disorganized.
You don't have any evidence of that.
In 1915, the Duma was suspended only to be reinstated in November of 1916, thus illustrating the chaotic nature of the government. Furthermore, the government had to resolve political discontent, which it failed to do after the Revolution of 1905. In the 12 years following this revolution, the government was unable to solve any underlying political unrest. One could even argue that this caused further political unrest because of the Tsarina's dependence on Rasputin.
In my defense, the Tsar left the regime under control of the Tsarina when he left for the front. She needed guidance and assistance.
Well, she should have also considered the opinions of her Duma, which she failed to do. Additionally, the Tsar displayed poor leadership on the front instead of attending to his primary responsibility in the government.
I promise you I'm innocent.
Well, that will be decided in court. You've been called here today to defend yourself against the charge of causing the 1917 Russian Revolution. First question. How could you allow World War I to have such a negative impact on the Russian economy and consequently the Russian public?
Actually, the war was beneficial to the economy because many factories that produce war materials flourished. In fact, many factories changed their production to war materials in order to increase profit and economic gain. Also, business groups in Petrograd unified to increase maximum production of munitions factories.
There was still a distribution problem.
What problem are you referring to?
Even though there were some supplies available, weak transportation inhibited the goods to be distributed to the front. If there was so much economic prosperity, then why wasn't the transportation industry developed to increase efficiency of distribution?
With such a large number of men at the front, there were not enough people to fill the industrial jobs, even after the peasants had moved in.
What do you say about the food shortages and bread lines at the front?
Well, at this time, our tactics were outdated and not up to date with the rest of modern Europe. However, this was not my fault because other social and political factors hindered industrial development.
At this time, the peasants had to move into the city in order to work in the factories that had been abandoned by men who had left for the front. This caused horrible living conditions, contributing to the discontent. Now the peasants weren't focusing on agricultural production as much, causing food shortages.
Well, wages did increase at this time.
Yeah, but the increasing wages did not compensate for the increasing prices due to inflation.
I don't know what to say about that.
Well, good luck in court.
I am the judge for this case, and today we will decide which of you is the primary cause of the February-March Russian Revolution of 1917. First order of business. We will hear a short defense statement from each suspect. Social, what would you like to say?
I do not believe I am guilty of this crime, for the political and economic influences were much more significant. The weak government and inability to please the citizens, along with the economic impacts of World War I, surpassed any social influences.
Political, what about you?
I am innocent, for the social and economic causes did not allow the government to solve any issues. The problems needed to be solved before any political peace could be reached.
Economic?
The war actually caused economic growth to increase because of flourishing factories and business groups unifying in Petrograd. However, the political and social insecurities hindered economic progress.
Now we will hear from the jury, who will decide the verdict.
I am speaking on behalf of the jury, and we have concluded that the economic causes are guilty of causing the crime. Disagreeing with the Soviet historians, we believe that the specific actions of economic problems caused the Russian Revolution, and that it was not inevitable. Additionally, we agree with the optimistic interpretation that the war greatly contributed to these economic problems, and without it, Russia could have had continued its progress of modernization.
Economic is guilty of causing the Russian Revolution of 1917.
Boo.